So ain't nothing changed from yesterday. Still the same person I was yesterday, and I got the same thing for you that I had yesterday. You know why I'm here.
You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it. That's the great thing about sports. You play to win. And I don't care if you don't have any wins. You go play to win. When you start telling me it doesn't matter, then retire. Get out. Because it matters.
What a letdown. I mean, I hate to start a Friday morning like that, but I can't help it. I mean, I was so fired up for a Thursday night full of sports. Pumped to watch the Pistons and Celtics, fired up to watch the Wings and Flyers, and really psyched to see how the Rams and Niners game would end, and all three of them absolute duds. Not if you're a Celtics fan, not if you're a Flyers fan. If you're a Rams fan, there's not many out there, but if you're a Rams fan, you'll take it. But overall, from an entertainment standpoint, it was a letdown. Welcome, everybody, on a Friday morning to X's and Bros throughout the great state of Michigan. I'm Matt Shepard. Trent Belly is our producer, and the Meyer Hotline is always there for you, 866-838-4843, or you can text the program Sports Radio to 21,000. Lots of different ways to get involved in that regard. And, of course, we go live every morning on X at XB Mornings, on Facebook, and on YouTube at X's and Bros. Celtics blow out the Pistons 123-99. Boston shoots close to 52% from the floor. They knocked down 20 triples in the game for their 20th win of the season. Their third in as many games against Detroit so far this year. Peyton Pritchard leads everybody with 27, including 7 threes. And with those 7 threes, now has over 500 in his career. Only 10 Celtics have ever done that. And I doubt many people would have thought it was Peyton Pritchard in that group. The Celtics did not play with Jason Tatum. He was out. Detroit ends up shooting 2 for 19, from deep in the first half. Finished with a season-low 7 triples made on the year, 7 for 37 for the game. Awful shooting display. Cade Cunningham, 18 points, did what he could, 18 points, 8 boards, 8 assists. Ron Holland had 26 for Detroit, but it's the Pistons who continue to struggle, especially against Boston. Boston's a really good team, and they're really deep. The reason they are the reigning NBA champs is in part because of their depth, and Derek White had a really good game. So they can overcome stuff like that. Detroit, I mean, when you're getting blown out by a team, again, really good, really deep, without their best player. Like, if you're losing, that's one thing. To get embarrassed like they were, and that's an embarrassment. I'm sorry. It's an absolute throttling at the hands of Boston. It's ridiculous. So it's unfortunate. That's the way it works for the Pistons as of late. They continue to struggle, just like the Red Wings continue to struggle. Philly runs roughshod over them 4-1. The offense is non-existent. Cam Talbot made some incredible saves in that one. Scott Lawton scored a goal in the second period, 3 goals in the third, 2 of them empty netters, over 100 for his career, had scored once in his previous 25 games. 1 goal in his previous 25. He scores all 4 of Philadelphia's goals, the first Flyer to do that since John LeClair back in 2002. And Ben Sherratt scores Detroit's lone goal, his first of the season. They have now lost 6 of their last 7. On the football gridiron last night, the Rams win in San Francisco 12-6, and a game filled with, you look at it, 6 field goals. Yeah, exactly. Very little offense, nasty weather, right? But LA will take it. They have now won 7 of their last 9. 4 days after winning the highest scoring game in the NFL this year, 44-42 to Buffalo, they end up winning the first game this season to be played without a touchdown. 4th time this year, Niners have lost to a divisional opponent after leading by at least 3 points in the 4th quarter. That's not the headline. The headline isn't that San Francisco is, in all likelihood, out of this. The headline isn't necessarily that the Rams keep pressure on Seattle, to try and win this division. The headline for San Francisco is unfortunately one of the most negative headlines you can have as an athlete. When Trey Greenlaw goes down, and look, this is a guy who has been out with an injury. He's worked his tail off over the last 305 days. 305 days, almost a full year, to try and get back in the lineup. He gets back in the lineup. He gets hurt. San Francisco, who signed Devondre Campbell as a free agent in the offseason for depth. When teams sign free agents, when they sign any guy, they usually, and I'm guessing John Lynch is like this in San Francisco as well, usually they bring that guy in and they say, this is the role we envision for you. You can always surpass the role. You can always say, you know what, deep down inside in your own mind, I'm going to do something different than you think and exceed those expectations. But usually what they do is they'll tell you, look, I mean, Trey Greenlaw is one of the best linebackers in the league. We think we've got some of the best linebackers in all of football, and I think they do too. We envision you as a guy who's going to be able to come in and help us in this type of situation. Might be a passing situation for cornerbacks. Sometimes it's nickel for defensive linemen. It might be pass rushing situations, a plug and play guy on third down, whatever it may be. So they bring Campbell in and they tell him, look, you are going to be basically Greenlaw's backup, but because he's out, we want to see what you can do. We want to make sure you're going to be the guy to take his place, go out there, knock him dead, blah, 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 blah. Last night, they asked him or tell him, you're in. We lose Trey Greenlaw. We need you in now. We need a backer, okay? Most guys put the helmet on and run to their spot. You know what this dude does? I'm headed for the third quarter, or I'm headed for the locker room here in the third quarter. Literally told the coaches, I don't want to play. The whole spirit of athletics, especially football, besides team camaraderie, the whole spirit of it is competition. And here's a guy who signed as a free agent and literally told his coaches that it's not in his heart. He doesn't want it. Told all his teammates on the sideline. I don't know if you heard any of the post-game comments made by his teammates. It could not be more scathing. A lot of times it's like, well, he's got a lot of things going on in his life. Who am I? Blah, blah, blah. No. From every guy at the podium, including his coach, Kyle Shanahan, George Kittle, whomever, to guys inside the locker room saying, we needed somebody. And he walked out on us. He abandoned ship. Unbelievable. I don't think I've ever seen this in all of sports. We'll talk more about that coming back here on X's and BrO's. Here's our poll question for the day. Who would you rather have at the quarterback spot? Jared Goff or Josh Allen? Those two square off Sunday at Ford Field in what could be a Super Bowl preview and what many consider the biggest game of the year. Not from a standpoint of, the Lions got to have it in order to reach any specific playoff seeding. Buffalo loses, they're not getting a 1 seed, so there's probably a little bit more sense of urgency there. But considering the talent of the two teams, many people consider this. I mean, that Pittsburgh-Philly game is pretty big too. But this one, because it features the two highest scoring offenses in the NFL, many people feel like is the game of the year. We've heard that before with the Lions, haven't we? Because people love watching them. Again, the Meyer hotline, 866-838-4843. We will dive into that competition or the lack thereof in a spirited game from last night between the Rams and the Niners when we come back on X's and BrO's on a Friday morning. Glad you're with us.
Huge here for my good friend Josh Garvey. Now, Josh joins me
I get that some people wake up in the morning and they don't have the same energy as they would have the day before, or maybe as the type of energy they would expect on a day when they received a raise. I don't know. There are certain things in life that spur you on, right?
Ebbs and flows.
Yeah, the beauty of what sports is supposed to bring out is the height of competition, the fact that you want to be better than the guy against you. The thing I love about the story of Alex Bregman, I don't know if people are familiar. Alex Bregman came out of LSU, was a phenomenal player. Dansby Swanson was a phenomenal player at Vanderbilt, both of them shortstops in college. Swanson went number 1 to the Cubs, or actually to the Braves. No, he went to the Braves, but he was traded from a team to the Braves. I forget which team actually drafted him. And then Alex Bregman went 2. And Alex Bregman took the number 2 because he was so pissed off that he didn't go number 1. He wanted everyone to understand that that's right there on his back every single day. That's the motivation. Where an athlete gets his motivation from is, to each his own, right? But boxers have certain motivations when they climb into the ring. You would think, right? I mean, Mike Tyson would have a lot of motivation in his first fight or second fight against Evander Holyfield, and yet Evander Holyfield kind of ruled the roost in both his fights against him. No matter where you get your foundation and then your inspiration from, that's up to you. In football, you can't play, you can't be effective, you can't be the type of teammate you expect others to be if you do not care. And I've used this phrase quite a bit in the years that I've done this show, that the thing that I love most about certain coaches is they have certain isms. They have certain phrases that kind of inspire me and really get us rolling a little bit. And I've heard from Jeff Blashill. I used to talk to Mike Babcock quite a bit. The gas level, the give a blank level, has got to be really high. That's the temperature in the room. How high is it for your team tells you how high your team can compete and is willing to go to the mat for one another and thus be successful. The Lions' gas level is exceptionally high, right? How high is the gas level from certain other teams? Look, they can go really hard and they can really care, but they may not be as talented. But you can tell what the gas level is, right? San Francisco's gas level has always been really high because of the leaders that they have. Whoever those leaders they might identify, but many of them, Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey, Fred Warner, right? You got Greenlaw is one of those guys. There is no question about that, all right? When you play the way Dre Greenlaw has played, he and Warner, I think, make up the best 1-2 punch as far as linebackers are concerned in the entire National Football League. He gets hurt, and then San Francisco, you shouldn't have to plead with a guy, and I don't think they did, but they turned to a veteran. I mean, Devondre Campbell has been a player in this league for a long time. He's in his 9th year. He played at the University of Minnesota. He's a guy who signed as a free agent in the offseason, but he's played in Atlanta. He's played in Arizona. He's played in Green Bay. He knows what it takes to compete. He knows what it takes to win. He's been on winning teams. He's been in winning games. He understands there has to be a buy-in. There has to be an unselfishness to play that position and play alongside another great player. And maybe you're not always getting the accolades that you perhaps necessarily want. But in 9 years in the NFL, you built yourself a pretty nice reputation, you would think. You've got yourself a nice pension moving forward. If you don't want to play, why are you suiting up in the first place? I mean, you know at some point during a game or during warm-ups or even during the week of practice, you know at some point, I'm ready to get after it. I'm fully 100% committed here. He was not last night. Did that show in the Niners' performance overall? I don't know. Okay. I don't know. The people are playing and missing or making the right assignment calls and all these other things that take into account what the NFL linebacker position carries with it. You don't know either. They know. The players in that San Francisco locker room know. The coaches on that staff know. And the front office know. They know what it takes on what he's supposed to be doing, and his absence, his walking off back to the locker room and leaving while his teammates are fighting and scratching, not just in a throwaway game. This is not, in the words of Herb Brooks, a throwaway game up in Rochester. This is not a team that is completely out of it. Carolina, Jacksonville, Las Vegas, Cleveland, these teams playing just to play out the string. There used to be an old saying when the Lions played at the Pontiac Silverdome, and I would go out to their practices because the practice field was just outside the dome, right? If it was a nice day out, if it was decent enough weather, you see them out there practicing on that field. You look back at it now and you're like, man, what a joke. But we used to go out there. Well, Featherstone Drive, which is where it's located, is right near M59 and I-75. You just jump right off Pontiac Silverdome, right onto Featherstone, take M59. That leads you to 75 South or 75 North. And we used to use the phrase, they have 75 eyes. 75 is mean they've checked out. They want to hit 75.
They can't
they
wait
want
to
to
get
head
out of
home
there.
to Florida or wherever they may be living down south. This guy, for 9 years, has played in this league, understands what it takes. Obviously, he had, in our words, 75 eyes. Why are you suiting up? Why are you even putting your teammates and yourself through this type of situation and decides to stroll to the locker room and say, I quit on you? If you have any hope, not just a plane of that king, he's going to get cut, right? If he hasn't already. Calling the agent, calling the player, hey, you know what? This guy's an absolute quitter. I want nothing to do with him. Every team in football, I mean, this dude's career has got to be over, right? It's one thing not coming back from an injury soon enough. Then many people, a doctor says, hey, you should be good to go. He should be good. Trent Bally should be good to go to this week. You should probably count on him. And Trent Bally says, I'm not feeling it. Okay, there's still a tweak there. I would like to give it another week. That's not quitting. That perhaps is making a good business personal decision that, you know what, I can't be at my 100%. I'd love to give it everything I got, but I'm just not ready to go. That's one thing, right? Every player can relate to that because they are playing through oftentimes bumps and bruises, trying to deal with all kinds of injuries. This guy literally, and he didn't say this before the game. He didn't say, you know what, I don't want to play today. I'm gone. He said this during the game. He's telling his teammates while the teammates are going, we need a linebacker. He's literally saying to them, it's not going to be me. I don't want to play for you. I don't want to play with you. I don't want to play in this game. I don't want to be part of this organization. How in the world would any general manager, you could have the closest relationship with him, how would any general manager say, I want you back in my locker room? It's impossible,
it can't happen.
You're trying to build a culture, right? They talk about the San Francisco culture. You and I talk quite a bit about the great culture that the Lions have.
I was just going to say, Shep, this almost amplifies how great the Lions are at this exact thing, which is Jamal Adams, Quan Alexander.
What's the most negative thing? This got me thinking when I'm watching this game last night. And really, I started thinking about it when Brandon Graham last week, or earlier this week, came out and started talking about the frayed relationship between Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. Now, that has been walked back a little bit, but oftentimes in those types of situations, the first reaction, especially on a Monday morning on a podcast, a day after it, the first inclination that a player has is to tell that truth, right? Now he's walking it back. I've had a chance to talk a little bit with A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts. Maybe I'm wrong. I misread this. I misspoke. Okay, right. Really, you're saying what you truly believe on that first blush. Anyway, there's not going to be one person who wants to take a chance, bring him into your culture, your locker room, because of this situation. You're afraid that he then comes in and destroys everything you've worked so hard to try and build. It's easy to play for a winner. It's really hard to finish things up and play as hard on a losing team as it would be if everything's going well. 866-838-4843. That's the Meyer hotline. This hour of X's and Bros, proudly brought to you by our friends at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort.
Yeah. The living legend of gangster, Ice Cube.
did when I asked him why he didn't want to go in. So
during the game or before?
No, that was in the third quarter.
It's amazing. It's Kyle Shanahan last night in his team's 12-6 loss at home against the Rams. That was the topic of discussion. The linebacker, Devondre Campbell, choosing not to go and walked off, sauntered off back into the locker room in the third quarter while his team is trying to compete. Has this happened before? Yeah, it's happened a few times. Vontae Davis, 2018, did it as a member of the Bills. They go in at halftime and they feel like they can come back. They're down in the game. I think they might have been playing the Jets. Anyway, he chooses not to come back out. Players are looking around. Where the hell is he? At age 30, two-time Pro Bowler, he ends up bailing. Antonio Brown, the former Chippewa. 2020, he and the Bucks win the Super Bowl, right? 2021, middle of the game, takes his jersey off. He said he was too injured to go back in. That's his words. Some would say he quit. It sure looked like he did. He would tell you, I was still injured. He walked off. And then Mike Wallace, if you remember, Mike Wallace played for Pittsburgh, played for Miami. I think he finished his career in Miami. He was in Miami.
Baltimore, too.
Yeah, but in Miami, he walked off or didn't come back out for the second half in the final game of the year. It's amazing to me that these guys, like, timing is everything, right? I've talked with plenty of coaches and general managers before this. Like, Shep, my door is always open for it. Just timing is really important. Get an idea of when going in is a good idea and when it's not. These guys, the timing, really, especially in a game like that last night, after the game, you can't give it your best for the second half and then say, forget it, or understand where you're at before the game. Either way, it looks bad. But this looks even 10 times worse when you're leaving in the middle of the game and everybody is asking about it afterwards. Let's go to the phone lines. The Meyer hotline is open for you, 866-838-4843. Trent, who's up on this Friday morning?
We got Dale in Muskegon. He's been waiting patiently to chime in on this exact topic.
Hi, Dale. Thanks for your call, buddy. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Shep. Love the show, man. Big fan. Out plowing snow this morning. Yeah, out plowing snow this morning. I listen to you guys almost every morning. Good entertainment. Thank you for doing what you do. I appreciate it. You can't defend walking off, but this guy made it as far as he did. 9 years in the league. He's a professional. He made it through college. You ever think there might be something more going on? Like something serious wrong upstairs? Like, no, you don't make it through high school, through division, whatever college, all the way into the pros for 9 years, and then walk off what might be your last game, and things are okay in your head. Like there's something wrong. You're out there, not only the money aspect that you're walking away from, his legacy, his everything. I'm just guessing there's got to be something big going on in his head, like mental problems somewhere to just step out and check out on his team like that. You don't go 9 years in the league, college, high school, all that dedication and just throw your legacy away because you're healthy, is my point. And it may not be physically. It might be mental. There's something going on, is my point, I think. To just trash your legacy after all the hard work you've done for all these years, and then you just step away like that, and you're okay in the head? Like, probably not. I think there's a little more going on, Shep. How do you feel about that, maybe? Before everybody starts jumping on him and bashing him and going hard, just think about that, right? Like, you think he put all this work and all this time in his life, and then it's like, yeah, I'm good. Don't just throw it away. I don't care about all these people. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it has more to do with his heart than it does his head. To your point, though, I mean, in fairness, I think Mike Wallace did this while he was a member of the Miami Dolphins. I've got to research that a little bit more. I'm pretty sure that's how that was the case. And if it was the case, if my memory serves me correctly, because it was frustration with Ryan Tannehill, that was back in 2014 against the Jets. Mike Wallace did end up getting more opportunities. Played in Minnesota, played in Baltimore, played in Philadelphia as well. So quitting on his team apparently didn't matter as much to those teams. So when I sit there and say he's never getting a job again, says who, right? I mean, it's happened. I think it's more in the heart than it is the head. I don't know you tell me, Dale, what's the legacy of Devondre Campbell?
Yeah, well, once again, if you walked out of your team and you're completely just like, a quitter, you quit because you quit, and there's not something wrong with your head, then that beyond tarnished is a legacy. I mean, that's just, once again, that's goes without speaking. Horrible to walk out, or it's bad to walk on your team anyways. You know what I mean? But if that is what he did, and he just left the field out of frustration, Antonio Brown style, like then that tarnishes it. That's to me. You should not come back to the league. You quit on your team. You walked away. That is the black mark of all black marks. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, it's probably the worst thing you can possibly do. I mean, outside of somebody calling you soft, and I suppose this can be associated with it, quitting on your team, I don't know how you come back from that. But like I said, I mean, the three cases that I brought up, Vontae Davis at age 30 with Buffalo, he did not come back. That was his last year. Antonio Brown in 2021 with Tampa, that was his last year. Mike Wallace, 2014 Miami, didn't come out for the second half. So frustrated with Ryan Tannehill. Supposedly, that could be used as his excuse and why he got the opportunity in a couple of other stops, Minnesota, Baltimore, and Philadelphia. But in this case, I mean, it's so public, so obvious, and in a game that is so important to his team. Let's face it. I mean, you're playing against a team, and thanks for the phone call, Dale. I appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Yeah. You're playing against a team that last week scored 44 points. And I know the weather conditions, and it sure didn't seem like this team was about to do just that, considering the weather conditions, and you just got that feel, right? I mean, Stafford wasn't real sharp. Maybe the ball was slippery. Who knows? Kyron Williams rushed for 109 yards, which was great.
A tough watch.
It was a tough watch. San Francisco, you're in the game there. You're a touchdown away from taking the lead. And that wasn't even the score. When he walked off, that wasn't even the score. I think it was 9-6.
It was.
Right. So it's 9-6. Your team's down a field goal. Your defense is giving it everything you possibly can, pressuring Stafford, doing a nice job of covering Cooper Kupp. And Cooper Kupp didn't have a catch, I don't believe. You're giving everything you got. And then think about this for a second. You're out there sweating your tail off, battling your butt off, right? You're bumped, you're bruised. You got guys who are injured. I mean, at this time of the year, find me somebody who's not injured. You're more apt to find me somebody who is injured than you would not injured on every single team in every starting lineup. Those guys are constantly feeling the pain. And you turn and you watch this guy walk off the field. And you're trying to figure out, wait a minute, where's he going? And eventually on the sideline, you're going to hear it because those coaches are saying, didn't want to play, doesn't want to go in, doesn't want to be with you, doesn't want to support you, isn't willing to sacrifice. That's what it is. I mean, that's what sports has always been about. It is sacrificing. And I know they get paid a lot of money, all right, to have their homes broken into. I get all that, right? Joe Burrow can go out and buy the Batmobile. There's plenty of sacrifices these guys make, and we all do it. I'm not saying they're Joe because of it. They're this guy on a mountaintop looking down because they've sacrificed. Dale sacrifices. Trent sacrifices. Anybody out there watching or listening to us, I know you make your sacrifices, but you got to be willing to do certain things, right? This guy, obviously, Devondre Campbell, has chosen not to commit to his teammate and not to sacrifice any longer with San Francisco. I would never want a guy like that, not just in my huddle, not just in my locker room, not just in my building, but I wouldn't want to do anything with a guy who wants to quit. Where's the incentive there? It's ridiculous. 866-838-4843. Good conversation. I appreciate it, Dale. As always, you can text the program Sports Radio to 21,000. I saw this the other day. It was the power rankings of the NBA teams, which, I don't look at it like I do with the NFL. When I see this stuff come out with the NFL, I think right away, how do you not have the Lions at number one? They've had the Lions at number one for the last few weeks. Okay. And they're late to the party.
Rightfully so.
But that's okay. But yeah, I mean, they should be. And quite honestly, depending on this game against Buffalo, I would still put them at number one. Again, depending on, let's say they happen to lose to Buffalo. I think they're going to beat Buffalo. But let's say they happen to lose to Buffalo, and it's by a field goal. To me, they're still number one. But that's neither here nor there.
Well, it's also just quickly, it's also like just the Bills losing to the Rams, like by 2 points in a shootout. Do you think any less of the Bills after that game? Probably not.
Actually, I kind of do.
Really?
Defense.
Oh, okay. I got you. But I'm just saying in the hierarchy of the NFL.
There's no perfect team out there, right?
Right.
But you and I, in order for us to differentiate from the best teams, Detroit, Kansas City, Philadelphia, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, whatever, okay? You know what? We have to figure out what we think is the difference between those teams. And when you get lit up for 44 points, granted,
fair enough, yeah.
That to me was a little surprising. And not that it's a common occurrence for them. So I'm not going to paint their defense with a broad brush and say that game alone should make you concerned. But when a team like the Rams, who've got plenty of talent, but you wouldn't say they're a complete team, when they are doing that to you and you have an inability to stop them, it's a little surprising to me. So did it change my opinion? I still think they're a damn good football team. I still think they're an AFC championship contender, but it does give me some pause. Let me ask you this. We talk too much for your liking about Kansas City, okay? I mean, they're 12-1. Do you not feel like there is a window of opportunity for somebody else in the AFC against Kansas City because of so many close games they've won?
Totally.
Okay. Then I think that's justified. And I understand it. And I think a lot of people feel the same way. That's the reason many people feel like their reign could be over. And they're looking for somebody else like Pittsburgh or Buffalo who can play in the weather or play indoors, has the offense to be able to keep their offense off the field and so on and so forth. So for me, looking at that game, and it's a smaller sample size compared to your opinion of Kansas City and a large sample size this year, and rightfully so. For me, it makes me believe that there's a little bit more of a crack in that foundation than I originally thought.
No, and that's fair. I don't think a 2-point loss to the Rams, even though it's a shootout and you give up 44. My point was simply, I don't really necessarily think that moves the Bills a ton in the hierarchy. I still think they're a top 4 team in football.
So do I.
So if the Lions were to lose by a field goal,
I look at it like they gave up 44 points.
Fair enough.
Okay.
That's a concern.
If that's a 20-18 final, I probably feel differently about it. We're talking about a 44-point performance on the part of their competition. That has to, I mean, if any team, if your team, I mean, you love the Lions as much as anybody I know, your team comes out there and allows 44 points, is that not giving you reason for concern?
Oh, there's red flags everywhere. Of course.
Absolutely. Okay. Yep. So if it's going to happen with your team, why wouldn't that be the same litmus test, concern, whatever, against Buffalo? Look, like I said, the Rams, I think offense, they've got plenty of weapons. When you look at their wide receivers, you look at their running backs, when you look at Stafford, they gave up 320 yards passing. They gave up 137 yards rushing in that game. They gave up 44 points. I mean, Puka Nacua had 12 rocks, 170 yards, something like that. Come on, man. I mean, if you're the Lions and this Lions fan base, are we not going, good luck stopping Amon-Ra St. Brown, James Williams, Sam Laporta, David Montgomery. There are going to be Lions fans walking into Ford Field on Sunday afternoon going, we're not going to punt. Jack Fox should just sit down, grab a popcorn, ask for a soda, and watch the game next to me in the first row because he's not going to get any work out there. And somebody might say, what are you talking about? Did you see what the Rams did to them? Did you see the Rams move up and down the field on Buffalo? Come on. There's got to be something in there that makes you go, that's a little concerning. Yeah, a little concerning. That gives me some pause, I think. I mean, I ask you, I don't remember all the statistics from that game. Did the Rams punt at all in that game?
I mean, I would guess no. I don't have it in front of me, but anytime it's 44 points,
the answer to that is no.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. So I you know how I feel. I said Buffalo wins the AFC. I said this weeks ago. I said this is a Super Bowl preview. I said that weeks ago. We're talking about a Rams team that had 9, I look at it now, 9 total drives. They scored on every drive, dude. So, yeah, I think there's reason for a little bit of concern if you're a Buffalo team. But again, I would keep them in, like you and I just talked about, the top 4. I looked at the NBA rankings. You know, I didn't expect the Pistons to be anywhere near, the top half, and they're not. They're at 20. But this is what was written about. Talk about a signature win. This is after they beat the Knicks at Madison Square Garden. And Cade Cunningham, by the way, over the weekend became the first Piston player to ever have a triple-double at Madison Square Garden, which surprised me. He had 29 points, 15 assists, and 10 rebounds. Here's how they described it. If you needed any more proof that Cade Cunningham is what Trent Bally has said about him earlier this year, a superstar. That's what a national publication wrote about Cade Cunningham. That doesn't make you automatically think, I believe it too. But look, I mean, the triple doubles, even the balanced scoring game that he had last night, scoring, dishing, you could tell he's made a much more conscious effort to get his teammates involved compared to early in his career when he's basically saying, I got to get mine.
And some of that too, Shep, has to do with, I give Trajan Langdon credit here, some of that has to do with roster construction. The teammates he's playing with now are a little more equipped to help him. When he gets them the ball, Malik Beasley, Tobias Harris, those guys are a little bit better than some of the guys you've had over the last few years. So that can help too.
I agree. I do agree with that. I have been disappointed with Tobias Harris and Tim Hardaway. I don't think you can say anything other than that. I don't know anybody who feels like, this is exactly what this team needed.
Hardaway, I totally get you. Tobias hasn't been shooting the 3.
Shoot at all. I mean, it's really bad. I mean, flat out. I mean, Tobias Harris is averaging about 14 points per game or so. I think he's shooting like 45% from the floor, but look at his 3-point shoot. That's the reason that they got him, right? He's shooting 34%. Now, should that surprise us all that much? Because last year against, with the Sixers, he shot 35%. So
no, that's a good point. I think people had people had rose-colored glasses with him coming back because he was here already, and the fans love him. I know you didn't because you have a measured take. Yeah,
I like him very much. I liked him in Tennessee. I liked him in the NBA. I didn't want to see him leave because I thought he was a true pro. So I do like him a lot as a person, but as a player, he has not been what this team has exactly needed. There are certain aspects, certain intangibles in his game that's exactly what they needed. Now, I say this about Cade Cunningham, and he went 9 for 22 last night, which is not good enough. But this is what we're finding right now with the inconsistency with this backcourt. All right, second hour of the program's right around the corner. Stay with us. X's and Bros on a Friday morning.
Attention, Michigan fans. It isn't a Michigan game.
All right, if you missed it last night, Pistons get rolled in Boston. Red Wings get bludgeoned in Philly. And the Niners fall at home to the Rams in a touchdown-less game. First time that has happened this year. Our poll question, and you can go to at XB Mornings or at Shep Matt. I've got to retweet this out. It's our poll question is, who would you rather have as your quarterback, Jared Goff or Josh Allen? Vote as often as you like. It's the matchup this Sunday, so that's the reason we put that out there. A lot of things happening in between or during our program, so haven't had a chance to retweet that, but I know at XB Mornings you can find it there, and we of course are live at XB Mornings on Twitter. We are live on YouTube and live on Facebook at X's and BrO's. Speaking of, Jared Goff and Josh Allen, these are two guys who are being mentioned as possible MVP candidates. And I think Josh Allen would be in that proverbial driver's seat. I mean, last week we just got done talking about the Rams and the Bills game, and how the Rams won that high-scoring affair, the highest-scoring game this year, 44-42. Josh Allen rushed for 3 touchdowns, threw for 3 touchdowns. Is the first quarterback in the history of the National Football League to do that in a game. He has cut down on his mistakes. He's cut down on his poor decision-making. We talked about that the other day. When you have just 5 interceptions and as many touchdowns as he has, and you're piloting the number 2 ranked offense in the National Football League, there's something to be said for that. Jared Goff, at one point, I think before the 5-pick game in Houston, which, by the way, he doesn't get enough credit for keeping his team at least playing through that.
Yeah, they won the game.
They won it because of the defense primarily.
Sure, but
he's the one who gets associated with the victory, right?
Yeah.
Give him the victory.
It's on his Football Reference page, Shep.
Yeah, a lot of people sit there and they'll go, you know what? I mean, they won despite you. But he made some big plays late in that game to give Detroit that win. I don't think enough has been made of that. It's the 5 interceptions, and it's a big number, right? I mean, it's more interceptions in that game alone than he had the entire season going in. But what he's done, he's done it in a different way. He is not flashy. He's not necessarily a highlight reel on every single play. But what he does do is he's very precise. He is very consistent, I think. And I read an article that when you look at the MVP odds, Josh Allen, I mean, we could see this on Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort, Josh Allen is the heavy favorite. Goff is a guy, and they had I think there are certain odds, right? Goff has the 3rd best odds. He's one of 6 players, according to the Detroit Free Press, 6 players who drew non-first place votes by after you ask certain other players, and a poll taken by this website. Allen received 10 first place votes. Saquon Barkley, Lamar Jackson received the other 2. I'm thinking, look, Saquon Barkley, I get. Maybe Lamar Jackson has set the bar for himself. I've always said that.
Yeah, he's already won 2 of them.
Yes, he's already won 2 of them. And because of that, you don't get measured necessarily against everybody else always, but you get measured against yourself. That is the reason
Great point.
When Wayne Gretzky, I'll take a different path here for a minute. Wayne Gretzky won the Hart Trophy, the MVP of the National Hockey League, 9 times. In a 10-year span. The most mind-blowing thing about that is not just that he won it, or the number of times that he won it, or the players that he beat, and the seasons that they were having, but the fact that Wayne Gretzky every single year was being measured against Wayne Gretzky from the previous year. Those are the things that I think you need to take into account. When a guy goes out there and he puts up the types of numbers that Wayne Gretzky has put up, in his career, you'll look at that and you'll say, it's amazing to me. And then for some reason or another, we believe you got to be able to do it again. And you can't. I mean, he had 200 points or more in a 4 out of 5 or 4 out of 6 year span, I believe. I got to look that up. But my point is this. You get guys out there who are being measured against their competition. Right. As soon as you start winning these type of accolades, you get measured against yourself because it's really hard to earn that vote. So, yeah, Gretzky goes out there. He wins the Hart Trophy in 1980 with 137 points. The next year, 164. The next year, 212. The next year, 196. Then 205. Then 208. Then 215. Then 183. Those are all Hart Trophy seasons, right? Those numbers are mind-blowing. Look them up. And look at what players have done since then. Who's even sniffing it? You're playing against Mario Lemieux and some of the greatest players. Finally, at one point, he finishes third in the Hart Trophy. He led the league in points that year. But Mario Lemieux and his teammate Grant Fuhr finished ahead of him. I'm not saying Lemieux didn't deserve it. I'm just saying that's because Wayne Gretzky, despite having that many points, okay, and it actually was 149 points. He didn't lead the league in points. My apologies. He led the league in assists with 109. He is being measured against himself, not just against Mario Lemieux, not just against Steve Yzerman. He's being measured against everybody else. And I'm not saying Lemieux didn't deserve it because he had 70 goals that year. He absolutely deserved it. But I remember in Detroit, people are like, wow, Steve Yzerman, our captain, he belongs in the same conversation. Steve Yzerman, he had 50 goals and 52 assists. He had a hell of a season. Wayne Gretzky's being measured against himself on a regular basis. And what does he do? He finishes third that year. The next year, he bounces right back. He leads the league in assists again and wins the Hart again.
Incredible.
It is incredible.
Can I ask you a question?
That's why I've said, Trent, I think he's the most dominating athlete of my lifetime.
I don't think you're wrong there at all.
Right, but I mean, when people talk about it, about dominating performances and dominating athletes, immediately they go to, obviously, you go to Peyton Manning, 5 MVPs.
Yeah.
You go to Tom Brady. You go to Tom Brady, 7 Super Bowls. And you go to Michael Jordan and LeBron James. Wayne Gretzky was more dominant in his sport than Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, and any of them. Tom Brady's the greatest champion. I didn't say Wayne Gretzky's the greatest champion. I'm saying he dominated a sport that really you're not supposed to be able to dominate.
Yeah.
Because of the way it's played. Anyway, so that's kind of my point. So I think what happens is, with Lamar Jackson, we were talking about Lamar Jackson a little bit. Lamar Jackson, it's not like he's having this fantastic season, is he? Actually, he really is. Like I look at it and I'm thinking, what's so great about that? He's got 29 touchdowns and 3 picks.
And this is why it really stinks that we put so much stock. No, I didn't. I didn't know that until you just brought it up.
He's just got 3 interceptions, dude.
And you wouldn't know if you listen to the national media because, Shep, I think what we do not we, but what the national media does so often is they put so much stock into wins and losses. And you and I have been on this all season that if the Bengals had been winning games, Joe Burrow would be running away with this thing. But I got a question for you, Shep, just quickly before we go to break here. Do you think the narrative matters for the MVP, or do you think it's strictly based on just numbers and what pops? Because I think this weekend, if the Lions are able to clip the Bills and give Josh Allen 2 straight losses, Josh Allen would have 4 losses on the season. The Bills would have 4 losses on the season. I think Jared Goff could hop from the third favorite to equal with Saquon for a second. I really do. If Jared Goff plays well and we see the Bills lose their second straight game, does that matter to you at all? Or do you think it matters to the voters?
I do think it matters to the voters because I think there are certain games where you stick out. Absolutely. I do. But I think it's going to be really hard to overcome Barkley, and it's probably going to be hard to overcome Lamar Jackson because of – look, Lamar Jackson's got better numbers this year already than he did all of last year. I don't know if people know that. He's got more touchdown
when he won MVP,
passes.
yes.
He's got fewer interceptions. He's got a better completion percentage. I'm not sure exactly about the yards yet, but he's got better numbers than all of last year, and he won the MVP last year. Sometimes we just look for new faces, and you're right, winning matters. But if winning does matter, to your point, should Jared Goff not be in that conversation more prominently? Because right now I think he's been backed off just a little bit. Like,
and if the Lions move to 13-1,
does that make you go, ooh, 25 touchdowns, 10 interceptions? Whether we like it or not, it's numbers. I get it, but it is part of the equation that gets you to the result of the final award. We'll pick it up there. We'll continue to talk about it. We've got some baseball discussion as well. 8:18. We've got our 6-pack brought to you by Founders. Plenty more coming up here on a Friday morning on X's and BrO's.
Yeah, yeah. The living legend of gangster, Ice Cube, returns to Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. Get your club on.
think one of the biggest challenges in sports for fans and probably members of the media is to try and break down barriers of preconceived notions. And I think Lamar Jackson, for me, I think we touched on this a little bit earlier this week, Trent. For me, I'm not a huge fan of running quarterbacks. I like mobile quarterbacks. I think it's important to be mobile. I think there is a massive difference between a mobile quarterback and a running quarterback.
There is.
So
you want your quarterback to have the escapability, but not necessarily have it part of the game plan. You don't want design runs for your quarterback.
Yeah, I don't want my quarterback running. I know people get really excited and juiced for that. I want him throwing the football. Okay, I got running backs. I got wide receivers who run after the catch. That's what I want. Is there a threat there? Yeah, you want to be able to have the threat, no doubt. But I do believe that the mobility is more important. Like Aaron Rodgers is a really mobile quarterback when he was young. All right. Patrick Mahomes is a really mobile quarterback. I wouldn't call him necessarily a running quarterback, but I mean, it's not the worst trait to have. Don't get me wrong. For me, I don't want that. I viewed, fair or unfair, it was probably more unfair, Lamar Jackson more as a running quarterback. And because I don't necessarily want my quarterback running, what happened? Boom. Okay. Therein lies part of my personal issue on what I needed to get by. You look at his numbers, he's not going to blow you away with some games that he's played this year. But when you look at his numbers and you see they're better than last year, how the hell do you not have him in that conversation? I literally have said on this show, and wrongfully so, Jared Goff, I'm sitting here touting Jared Goff more so than I am Lamar Jackson. I think Jared Goff's been super consistent. You know, when I look at 25 and 10, and unfortunately, that's what oftentimes it comes down to with quarterbacks, touchdown to interception ratio. I do have to take into account that half of his interceptions in one game. But
you've got a statistical outlier.
He's thrown more in one game than Lamar Jackson has thrown all season long.
But you're right. There's a statistical outlier. There's a formula for this. My algebra teacher in high school, Mr. Grunlier, if you're listening, he taught me about this. There are certain statistics that you have to throw out because when you do the formula, there's some sort of formula, Shep, where it's like it doesn't matter to the average because it's so far away from the mean. And that's what that Houston game was for Jared Goff.
Yeah, but my point is he's got more interceptions. You can use that all you want. But in the end, Lamar Jackson has 3. Jared Goff had threw more in one game than Lamar Jackson has all season long. On top of that, immediately my mind went, well, Jared Goff's probably throwing a lot more than Lamar Jackson because what makes Jackson so dangerous is his ability to run the football when the attempts are really close. I mean, they're really close to one another. Jared Goff has thrown the ball 381 times. Lamar Jackson's thrown it 379 times. I think completion percentage is really important. Accuracy is really important. Lamar Jackson completing 67% of his passes. Jared Goff at 72.5% is crazy, but you think 67% is bad? Hell no, it's not bad.
No.
And I'm not trying to make this one guy against the other. I'm calling myself out in this response because I believed it was Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, Jared Goff, anybody else. And I wasn't sold on Lamar Jackson. You need to understand things a little bit deeper in that regard than just the numbers, yes, but also compared to what they've done. And why I said this is because long-winded answer going around here, I said he's compared to what he did a year ago, and he's compared to his previous MVP seasons. That's why I brought up Wayne Gretzky. That's why I'm talking a little bit about Lamar Jackson right now. But I do it would be awesome to see. I don't think it's going to happen, but it would be awesome to see the Lions have themselves an MVP. It's only happened twice in the history of the franchise. Barry Sanders in 1997 covered that team here in Detroit, and he had to share it with Brett Favre, from what I can recall. And the other is, do you know who the other was? Do you know who the other MVP is?
No clue.
Frank Sinkwich.
Never would have guessed.
Yeah, 1944. All right. He was a tailback. He played for the Lions just a couple of years because he went into the service and he got injured. But in 1944, he was the most valuable player. Played his career at Georgia. Okay. He was a 2-time All-American there and actually set the NCAA, I believe, record. If it wasn't for Georgia, I think it was the single season total offensive record in the NCAA at the time, and led his team to an 11-1 record that year. And he was actually he was the back of the year and was voted the number 1 athlete in 1942 at the collegiate level. The number 1 athlete. You know who he beat that year? Ted Williams.
Wow.
Yeah. Ted Williams, who hit the Triple Crown in baseball.
What a time for American sports. Wow.
Is that crazy or what? Anyway,
that is crazy.
So the Lions come out and the Lions draft him first overall in the 1943 draft, and he's the MVP of 1944. And then, like I said, he ends up going into the war and all kinds of problems ensue and injuries ensue, and you know, there's nothing he can do about it. Those are the 2 MVPs in Lions history. So I would love, again, this is selfish, full disclosure, very selfish. I would love to have seen Jared Goff be a little bit more in the forefront of this. And I think what's happened is it's become probably, if not a 2, probably more like a 3-man race.
Yeah, and if we can just lay it out for people,
and
the
Mahomes
Vegas odds are worth it.
By the way, so when people say, "Oh, it's a 3-man race," Mahomes, no, he's not been in the conversation.
No, he's a distant 4th. If you look at the odds, I'm not saying it's gospel, but it's just it's a baseline. Josh Allen's a heavy favorite. He's minus 400.
Yeah.
Saquon Barkley jumps up to plus 450, and then Jared Goff and Lamar are actually tied. They have the same odds. And all that I'm curious about, Shep, is if this Sunday, I'm genuinely curious. Josh Allen loses his 2nd straight game. The Lions move to 13-1. We know how prisoner of the moment Vegas can be. I wonder how these odds might shift if the Lions move to 13-1. And I mean, on top of that, if Jared Goff looks really good, if Jared Goff has a 300-yard passing game, 4 touchdowns and a shootout like I think it's going to be, and Josh Allen might drop down. I'm not saying he wouldn't be the favorite anymore. I'm just saying Jared Goff might get closer to Saquon.
You said if Josh Allen loses his 2nd straight game, in other words, if Buffalo loses their 2nd straight game, do you think Buffalo lost last week because of Josh Allen?
Not at all. Not at all.
So I think what has to be clarified there is not just that Buffalo would lose their 2nd straight game, but if Josh Allen didn't play well, if Josh Allen is out there spinning it, throwing 3 touchdowns, his team scores 35 points, and they lose 38-35, should he be knocked? Absolutely not. Because, and if you think he should be, then all the conversations you and I have had so far this year about a guy like Joe Burrow,
yeah,
then we're hypocrites because it's not on him. It hasn't been on him, and a lot depends on how he plays. It's the same argument that we've had right now for Jared Goff and how he played against Houston. All right, overcoming some odds and overcoming that performance moving forward. Why should you denigrate a guy for one performance, even when his team, you could say he helped them, but I think he did help them find a way to win his worst game of the year. I would have to do a little bit more in-depth studying of the worst game for Saquon Barkley, the worst game of Josh Allen, and the worst game for Lamar Jackson to see if indeed that they should be knocked down a little bit in the public's thinking of MVP race as much as Jared Goff was. None of them threw 5 picks in a game, or Saquon Barkley didn't fumble 5 times in a game. So maybe that's what has stuck out. I think my hope is that people, what's sticking out for them with Jared Goff is how he has kind of stayed that steady course with this team and led them to the best record in the National Football League. When we come back, we will talk about one fan whose emotions got the best of him, and he's going to pay for it for the rest of the year. This is X's and Bros.
Huge here for the Michigan High School Athletic Association. You can
Yeah, we'll talk about this at a different time. But Trent and I can't talk to you during the break about this. You and I were just talking about certain contracts, right? Baker Mayfield, for example, signed that deal with Tampa. I got him, according to Sport Track, because he signed the contract 3 years, $100 million, right? So he is making, in 2025, he'll make $36 million. In 2024, it's at $7 million. That's the cap hit anyway. All right.
Yeah, the genesis of the conversation, we're trying to figure out what the Vikings are going to do with Sam Darnold. And again, we can shelf this for another time.
The dead cap is $40 million, but I just wanted to clarify some things because I always thought, well, $100 million, I thought a lot of that was up front. 46 next year, but the third year of the contract, it's 11.5.
They kind of did that weird thing where they you know how sometimes you front load it or you back load it.
A lot of teams do that. A lot of teams do that, and they should do that.
Yeah, it's smart.
Yeah, for sure. We don't necessarily have to go that route. I know we got some texts. I want to get to some texts for sure, and I want to talk about just a real quick story that I saw in the Detroit News about that Lions fan who is now banned from Lions games because of the confrontation that he had with Matt LaFleur and Green Bay on Thanksgiving Day. You and I talked about this. The fan's name is Fahad Youssef. He let the emotions get the best of him, but he has had his season tickets revoked indefinitely. And in his response, he has been devastated. It's a gut punch. He didn't feel like he had his chance to tell his side of the story. I don't know if you necessarily need to. When you're out there pointing fingers and sitting there trying to entice Green Bay by jawing at them when that has nothing to do. That is not your role. You're out there to help unfold Old Glory. And you're out there talking smack to a National Football League team as a fan. That you get in the stands and do that stuff. You don't do it when you're on the field of play. So it's hard for me to feel bad for a guy who says, just waking up, seeing an email from the Lions and saying, I can't talk to anybody, and now I have my season tickets revoked. Maybe you should have thought of that beforehand. You're a grown man. You should know that. Anyway, let's go to some texts. Fire away. What do we got?
Regarding the Devondre Campbell debacle from last night, we got a text that says, what Andrew Luck and Barry Sanders did was in principle no different than what happened last night. Just because it wasn't in the middle of a game doesn't mean you didn't leave your teammates in the lurch.
It's completely different.
I agree. Yes.
I don't know how you can make that comparison. Barry Sanders, gave that organization everything he could for 10 years. He was the best player on that team every single year. Those guys understood that he was getting worn down. He retired. He didn't quit. There is a difference. Retiring and quitting are two completely different things. And doing it in the offseason instead of the third quarter of a game that your team needs to win in order to stay in the playoff hunt is massively different. It's not even in the same conversation, for crying out loud. You can be upset on how he did it via facts. You can be upset that he did it at all when he had a chance to be the number one rushing running back in the history of the National Football League. That probably would have been passed by Emmitt Smith because that was a big goal of him. You should have known the type of person Barry Sanders was over the number of times that you read about him, heard about him, saw him talk about that he didn't necessarily love football. He did it because he was great at it. But to say that he quit on his team like a Devondre Campbell did last night in the middle of a game at the end of one season when you were signed as a free agent in a game that meant so much to the rest of his team, and the team turns around and looks and says, where is he going? They had no idea this was going to happen. Barry Sanders' retirement, not quitting, retirement was very surprising, but to a lot of his teammates, it wasn't. I have no idea how you can make that comparison. Next text.
This one is regarding the Red Wings. Actually, no, pivot. But the Lions. To cement this possible Super Bowl run for Detroit, we need a Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff part 3. to send this team to the Super Bowl and beat whoever is in our way. 30 for 30 on ESPN, starting with the Silverdome blowing up.
You know,
I love that.
That's interesting. A friend of mine last night, I had some of my good friends over last night to watch some of the games and just have a couple of pops and eat some pizza. And somebody said, I don't want to see the Rams. While we're watching the Rams struggle to move the football, bad weather, but still struggle to move the football. He goes, I don't want to see the Rams. I said, why not? He said, Stafford scares me. And I said, well, who do you quote unquote want to see? He goes, I don't want to see Philadelphia. Minnesota's scary a little bit. I said, well, who the hell you're going to have to play somebody for crying out loud. He said, can't we just get a bye all the way to the Super Bowl? Laughingly, of course. And I said, do you think those teams want to see Detroit? Do you think they want to go to Detroit first and foremost? Second of all, do you think they want to play the Lions, the number one scoring offense in football and the number 2 scoring defense, right? I think they're the number 2 scoring defense. Check that for me. Do you think they want to see? Hell no, they don't. We have a tendency to fall back to bad habits. We all have them. I have bad habits, all right? I think there's plenty of people who have bad habits out there. Listen to somebody speak once in a while and answer me, especially a young person, answer me how many times they say the word like. Find out how many times somebody starts a sentence with the word so. Those are bad habits. It happens quite a bit. Anyway, the belief that I don't want to see a certain team is because we're not used to a certain type of success from this team. And the Lions are 3rd in the league. Yeah, tied for 2nd. Excuse me.
Tied for 2nd, 18 points per game.
Right. Only the Chargers are better. So that's pretty impressive.
Jim Harbaugh.
Right? No, I'm saying the Lions.
I know.
Impressive.
I'm throwing
number
that.
1 in offensive scoring and number 2 in defensive scoring tells you an awful lot.
Yeah, it sounds like the best team in the league.
Good. Anyway, so my buddy's telling me about this. Oh, I'm not sure I want to see it. I think it's because we're just not used to how good this Lions team truly is, and that we have never been in the position to put ourselves in the opposing mind frame of fans who have to play the Lions and why they would be scared of the Lions, at least not since the early 90s when Detroit had those weapons of Moore and Perriman and Morton and Sloan and Sanders and Mitch. I almost said Scott Mitchell. It's a completely different situation now. We respect the opposition, respect what Philadelphia has done, respect how talented the Rams offense is, respect how Minnesota has gone about and done their business with Sam Darnold at the helm and Justin Jefferson, one of the best wide receivers in the game. But those teams have to be, and those fan bases have to be looking at Detroit and thinking, my goodness, who wants to run into that buzzsaw? Some of my buddies last night, they're like, I can't believe Detroit's 12-1 and they only have a 1-game lead. I said, how do you think Philadelphia and Minnesota feel? They're 11-2 and they're not even in first place in the conference.
Crazy.
Let's go back to the text line. Sports Radio 21,000, fire away.
Yeah, here's the one that is regarding the Red Wings. Says Dylan Larkin paraphrased that Sebastian Cossa gave us a spark, and the Wings lose 4-1 to the Commanders. He's sent down, essentially, is what he's saying, after his first career win.
To the Commanders?
What is this?
4-1 to the Flyers.
Flyers. Yeah, sorry. That's my bad. My bad.
Okay. No, it's okay. I wanted to make sure because when you look at certain teams, like the spark thing it's real, right? It's absolutely real. If a player says it, I don't think he's searching for a phrase there. If a player says it, I think it's real. When you bring your best goalie back, though, what are you supposed to do? Sebastian Cossa, it's not as if he made his own personal highlight reel film in one game. I'm glad he got the experience. I'm sure he'll get the experience again, especially if Detroit continues to play this way and you could say goodbye to, Ville Husso. It's not enough for us to recognize whether or not he truly is the future, but I would like to see him up here playing a little bit more eventually. I do trust that the Red Wings know whether or not he's ready. I don't think it's necessarily, but he's not going to take minutes away from Cam Talbot. He's been the Wings' best goalie, and he made a ton of really good saves last night. Remember, the 4-1 final, I don't want to say it's misleading, but 2 goals were scored in an empty net. I look at it more as a 2-1, almost 3-1 game. You're pulling your goalie to try and generate something late. I think what Detroit needs is a spark in a different way. What that way is, I can't necessarily say.
Well, it's offensively, because like you said earlier with heroes and heels on Monday, your heel was the Wings because they don't score goals. I mean, like you said, even if it's a 2-1 game.
Shots on net, Trent. It's not just scoring goals, and that's big. But in order to score, you got to shoot the damn puck.
And they don't. Yes, correct.
They just don't do that nearly enough. And I know that can be so simplified on my part, and it's probably not always fair. Okay. But my goodness, I mean, you've got to be better in shots on net. It's incredible that they just don't have that. Phone number is the Meyer hotline, 866-838-4843. Alex Bregman is in the news because there are reports out there that the Tigers are interested. This conversation came up with me and my buddies last night, and a friend of mine said, I want to see Alex Bregman here. And I said, oh, cool. I said, if you were the general manager, would you give him 6 years, $200 million? That's the reported asking price, right? 6 years, $200 million.
What'd your buddy say? Would he do it?
Yes. He said he would do it. And I said, you do understand, right? He said, well, he's Gold Glove and he can hit homers. Right. He was a Gold Glove last year. And by the way, full transparency, I really like Alex Bregman. I think I respect his grit, his grind, his consistency for the most part. I think he's a really good player. I think a lot of the attributes that he brings is exactly what Detroit needs. You need a little bit of that chip on your shoulder type of player as a Gold Glover, an All-Star MVP, a 2-time All-Star, a Silver Slugger, a winner. But I'm not going to get caught up in what Scott Boras, his agent, is all about when he talks about Alex Bregman. He says, Alex Bregman, it's an ABC type guy. And he uses A for Alex, B for Bregman, and C for champion. That's cute. Good job. Way to go. But here's a guy who had, last year, what do you have? 26 home runs for Houston. So the number's down a little bit there. He's not going to be the 41 homer guy. He's not going to be that. But if you sign a guy to a 6-year, $200 million contract. So you're telling me you're willing to take him on for $30 million a year, right? Isn't that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think he's a $30 million a year player right now?
Right now, maybe. But like you and I talk about, the sticky thing with this is the length of the contract. Like,
that's not what I'm asking you. I'm asking you $30 million a year right now.
I would do it if it was a 1 year, $30 million, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Okay.
So yes, to answer your question.
So you do think he's a $30 million a year player?
For 1 year, yeah.
Okay. You understand, but
that's not realistic is what I'm saying.
No, it's not realistic.
Because you have to sign
I'm not asking you about the length of term. I'm asking you about the amount of money. First and foremost, $30 million a year. Okay.
Yeah, I'd pay him $30 million a year. Yeah.
You would. Okay. I think, and he had 26 homers this past year, 25 the year before, 23 the year before that. So pretty consistent, right, in that regard. He's not giving you
reliable.
Money, right?
Everyday player, too.
Everyday player. RBIs, he hasn't had, he's had over 100 twice in his career. Most runs batted in ever is 112. And you even said this the other day. I want to see guys who drive in runs, right? So he hasn't had more than 26 of the homers this year. So the big year he had was in 2019, he had 41 bombs. The thing we also have to take into account is the defense. He's going to help your shortstop, right? You hope. He was a 4-WAR player last year.
That's a big stat right there.
That would have been more than any other position player for the Tigers this past season. Matt Vierling. Matt Vierling's not making $30 million. And I think that has to take into account. All right. $30 million. I would not pay him $30 million. It's a lot of money.
But Shep, I think in context,
what you're doing is you're paying for what he has done. All right. And I want to pay people for what they will do. And personally, I don't think, if a guy's 260 with 26 bombs and 90 RBIs, if that's a $30 million a year player, I'm going to have to go someplace else or pay him less.
My answer to paying him $30 million a year is based on the Tigers' case. I mean, it's a case-to-case basis, right? You just brought it up. Matt Vierling is not making $30 million, and he's giving you that kind of production. So you have the money to spend. Therefore, I would spend it on a guy like Bregman. I would. But I kind of veered off onto this track, and I didn't mean to sidetrack us, but to me, what is concerning is you have to give him a 7-year contract, and I don't want to give him that kind of deal because, like you said, he's 31 years old. So
I haven't seen the 7 number. I've seen the 6 number.
6 number.
7. Yeah.
Same difference, though. You get my point. Is I don't want to be paying him that. I don't want to be paying him $30 million when he's 35 because I don't think he'll be giving us that same production.
Right. You're telling me so? Matt Vierling last year made roughly $800,000. And and he didn't have that production, by the way. Matt Vierling didn't have the production.
No, not on par. What I'm saying is we talk about the WAR, and I'm saying Bregman would walk in and be your highest.
He was a 2.8 WAR player, I believe, something like that.
Sounds right.
Okay, 2.7 WAR. That's a huge difference. It's unfortunate in baseball, but this is what it's oftentimes what it does come down to. It does come down to a lot of times money. Okay. And when you've got a team that isn't going to be willing to spend, and Matt Vierling was a 3-WAR player, 3-WAR. I don't want to shortchange him. That's impressive for $800,000. And now you're going to pay a guy $30 million to be slightly better than that, and hope at his age that he's going to be able to duplicate it. On top of that, he is hitting he's playing more of his games in a less hitter-friendly ballpark. To Alex Bregman's credit, in his career, he has as many home runs on the road as he does at home. And last year, the 26, 16 were at home, 10 were on the road. He's not playing in Comerica Park every time. The other problem is the teams that are interested in Alex Bregman, the Yankees, the Red Sox, where do you think he's going? We think the lineage with A.J. Hinch is the difference. It didn't matter with Carlos Correa. We'll get more into that when we come back on X's and Bros.
Hey, Michigan, let's go big.
Get some facts and come back and see me. Get some facts and come back and see me. Don't throw out salaries or other things. Get some facts and come back and see me. You can't handle the truth.
I told our players, you need to be more like a dog. We don't need a bunch of cats in here looking in the mirror. Do I look good? I got my extra bands on. I got my other shoes on. Be a dog. We don't need no meows. We don't need no cats. We need more dogs.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
We weren't good. There's no sense asking me things about the game. I'm telling you, we laid an egg, so I'm not going to break it down for you. We sucked. We sucked. We laid an egg. That's all I have to say, guys. I'm sorry. I'm not going to break it down for you. Nothing went well for us. It's on us. We have to figure it out, and we will.
It's showtime. All right, back with you on the final hour here of X's and Bros. Glad you're with us. The Meyer hotline, 866-838-4843. You can text the program, Sports Radio, to 21,000. Oftentimes, when we have these debates, these are the things that go through my mind. And we have these conversations, for example, as we just left off with Alex Bregman, I sometimes battle with myself because I have complained for a long time that the Tigers aren't willing to go out and spend money to make their team better. Now, the belief is that they don't want to spend on a $200 million contract. I can't sit there and bitch and moan about the Tigers not willing to spend and then turn around and say, I wouldn't do that. I think a $200 million over a 6-year span for a guy like Alex Bregman, who I like, won a Gold Glove, yes, had a nice 4-point WAR, would have been second on the team to Tarek Skubal had he played in Detroit with those numbers. Understanding this, though, his WAR numbers are going down regularly. 5.4, 4.3, or 5.4, 4.5, 4.1 going down. His walk rate is considerably down, right? The power is not necessarily there like it was before, all right? The as I say, the walk rate that used to be in the teens, in the double digits, now is below 7% this past year. Those are the things that you've got to look at, okay? He had a really, from mid-May on, huge OPS, 25 homers in his last 108 games. So that tells you something right there. When you're playing 150 games or so and you're going through a long drought and you don't have the homer, and then suddenly you catch fire, and maybe something comes around there, right? Maybe there's something along there that makes you feel like he found it and he fixed something. He had a higher swing rate at the beginning of the season, and he had a higher swing rate this past year than he has in recent memory. Maybe that's part of the problem. I don't know, okay? But I have to call myself out too. Like I always talk about self-reflection, really important. I got to call myself out in this situation. If they got to spend the money on somebody, I don't think they should spend it all on one guy, but they got to spend the money on somebody. Why shouldn't it be a guy like that? It's scary. Long-term, maybe this is buyer's remorse when it comes to Miguel Cabrera. Long-term deals with guys who are in their young 30s scare the hell out of me. Trent said to me during a break, what would you do? What would you want? Because his 1 year, $30 million scenario is not realistic. But if I said I would do 3 years, $75 million total, I think that would be ideal. That's not realistic either, by the way. And the reason it's not realistic is because if you're Scott Boras and you're this agent, and you're telling all your clients of these great deals that I've gotten guys in the past, including most recently Juan Soto, 15 years, $765 million, which is still unbelievable. You're that player like, wait a minute, how come you're not, what are you doing for me? You give me a 3-year deal? You want me to kick that free agent can in 3 more years when I'm going to be a little bit older and I'm going to be 34? How many teams, from that moment on, I'm going to be signing 1-year deals. Why are you doing that to me? So my scenario isn't realistic either. It's what I would like. It's what I think should happen from a team perspective, but you got to look at it in both perspectives. What's the balance there? Quite honestly, the ideal situation is exactly, not that the Tigers would do this, nor would I spend $765 million, but the ideal scenario is getting a guy when he is in his young 20s. And signing him so he can be with you for an extended period of time, which is what teams like have done with Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis Jr. and now Juan Soto, what the Braves did with a lot of their guys, right? That's what you would like from the Tigers. You'd like to see a young guy step forward, take that mantle, and then you sign him to that long-term deal while he's in his mid-20s. Let's go to the phone lines before we get to the daily wager and the final results from yesterday's poll question. Who's up next on this Friday?
We've got Bill in Jennison, and he is ready to fire.
Hi, Bill. How are you today?
Matthew, good morning. How are you?
I'm all right. Thanks for the call.
CMU class of 79. Just got to throw that out there. Fellow Chip here.
Fire up, Chips.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Somebody's got to get fired up, but the effort last night on the ice was not good. I think we got some. Well, I don't think we have. I know we have. We got some serious problems right now. I mean, Philadelphia outskated us. We had no forecheck. Talbot, it could have been 7-8-1 very, very easily. And
sure. Yep.
Here's one thing I'm going to throw out to you that I was a little disappointed on the other day when I read that Lalonde said that Kosa looked shaky. Granted, right? It was his first game. I get it. But I guess I would have liked him to say, you know what? God bless him for doing what he did. He'd been sitting for, whatever it was, 7-8 days. He hadn't played, but he was up with the team.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just, it's a mess right now. I mean, you got to call it like it is. And I don't want to do that because I've been a fan since, probably 61 or 62 when I was, first went to my first game way back when at Olympia. But, it's just, you can just tell there's just, the talent level's not there. I think we just need to come out and say that because it just isn't. And I hate
something's
to say
not
that,
clicking,
but,
right?
yeah.
There's something missing.
Oh
like
my gosh, it's not.
I said this earlier in the week, Bill. I said there's something off with the team. I don't know what that is, okay? Because I'm not going to claim to have this great pulse on this team, but there's something off. Something is not together like we've seen before. Two things that stuck out for me last night. The constant giveaways by this team. I think they had like 20 giveaways, so that sucks. But last night, Philly they won 63% of the faceoffs last night. 63% to 37%. It's all about possession, right? You value your possessions in basketball. You want to hold on to possessions in football, right? Hockey, in order for you to have possession of the puck, you got to win the damn faceoffs. And how many are you losing in your own offensive zone or I should say your defensive zone? How many of those faceoffs are you losing? That's a troubling aspect, and they're not getting better. Like if this were a short, small sample size, I think you and I could easily brush it off and say, hey, it's early on. We've seen this before, and teams can turn it around. Edmonton a year ago, right? We're not seeing it change.
Yep.
It's constant.
No, something's missing. You're right, and that's what I thought the same thing. My son went down Saturday night and watched the game, and he's played hockey all his life. He knows the game very, very well, and he said, in his opinion, we got three guys on offense who we can kind of rely on. We got two, maybe three serviceable defensemen. We do have a couple of good goalies. There's no doubt about that. But the rest of it, there's something missing. Something's just off, and I don't know what it is. But
I think he's right about that. I got a funny
feeling changes are coming.
Yeah, I assume the three offensive players he's referring to are Larkin, Raymond, and DeBrincat. And I assume the defensemen are Sider and Edvinson, and then Talbot.
Correct. Yep.
That's everybody loved the re-signing of Patrick Kane. I was in the minority there. I said, okay, that's fine. I don't see him being a real offense. Are you gonna be able to trade him? Because that's what you're gonna have to do. Are you gonna be able to trade him? And what are you gonna get for him? I'm not sure you can. Bill, thanks a lot. Say hello to your son for me.
Thank you,
look forward to any more
Merry
hockey
Christmas
conversations.
and everybody.
And same to you. Thanks very much. We appreciate it. Thanks, Bill, for the phone call. When we come back, we'll give you the daily wager from yesterday. We'll give you the final results from our poll question. And we've got our six-pack brought to you by Founders. That's coming up next. Stay with us.
Huge here for my good friend Josh Garvey. Now, Josh joins me in studio.
Bum, bum, bum. Just listened to this song yesterday during the workout. Welcome back. Just so people are aware, when we were talking about the Alex Bregman thing, the MLB.com came out and said the Yankees are pursuing now a number of different players on top of signing Max Fried. Just want to finish this up. Kyle Tucker is one of the guys that they're pursuing in a trade. I think he's a hell of a player. Tigers don't necessarily need an outfielder. They need a right-handed stick. Alex Bregman's the other guy that they're pursuing, according to MLB, which tells you right there, are you going to be able to outbid a team like that? You're not outbidding a team for Juan Soto in the 700 millions. But when a team like the Yankees miss out on a key player like that, you know what they do? And don't think that it's Max Fried because he's a pitcher. They say, we've got to help our lineup. We're going to go get the next best guys, plural. That's why I'm skeptical, because I just don't think you're going to outbid a team like that.
You're not.
They're not swinging and missing on a big name, swinging and missing on another big name, swinging and missing on another big name. Teams like that don't do that. I mean, I'd love it if it were my team that is actually in that conversation where people are going, you know what? You're not going to outbid the Tigers. But when you got the Yankees, the Astros, the Red Sox, and the Tigers, I think you've got an uphill battle. All right, let's get to our six-pack. We do this every Friday at 8:18, and it is brought to you by Founders. Good cold beer. Had some last night. This is where we each give. The weekend is upon us, man. I mean, let's get after it a little bit. We will. This is where we each kind of volleyball off one another, and we ask a question that's not related to sports, just to allow.
We want to take you into the weekend
a little bit better. All right. So this is how we take you into the weekend. It's the Friday six-pack brought to you by Founders. First question for you. Speaking of that, beer, wine, or mixed drinks for you? And if it's the mixed drinks, I want to know what it is.
I am such a oddball when it comes to this because I'll drink anything.
You could have stopped at oddball, period.
I could have, yeah. I think my go-to is I'm more of a cocktail guy. I love Jack and Coke. I love Captain and Coke. Okay. But I also just love standard cold beer. Love it.
Okay, good.
What about you?
I think you and I are very similar in that way. So my go-to is beer, first and foremost. But I do like whiskey. All right, so an Angel's Envy is good for me. I don't like it with anything other than I'm just drinking on the rocks, sip it on the rocks for a while. I'm not going to sit there and harken back to my Central Michigan days and let's do a shot and here we go. Done that a few times, especially when it's euchre night. But overall, it's beer and whiskey. I will do the gin and tonic one. Not bad. If they don't have the beer I want, then I will go there or bourbon, depending on the feeling. All right, that's my first opening of our six-pack. What do you have for us?
I'll stay in the ballpark there, and I'll just go, Shep. I want to know what's your favorite craft beer. This segment's brought to you by Founders. What's your favorite craft beer, period?
Yeah, I love Mortal Bloom. Really, really good. I mean, just a really crisp taste. Love it. Simply love it. There's a few others that I really like throughout the state. I do like Mr. Blue Sky from Griffin Claw. There's a Blood Orange from Sheboygan that I like a lot. I have never, in full disclosure, never been a craft beer guy until I started drinking those beers. So Moral Bloom from Founders is really, really good. It's hard. Oftentimes when I think of craft beers, this is where one of those barriers you got to break through. I used to think bitter aftertaste compared to some of the other beers that I used to have, the imports that I have. Not the case with these beers. So Founders has got some great beers. I don't say that because they sponsor this segment, because I gave you a couple other breweries too. But trust me when I tell you, I mean, if you like a good tasting beer, and there are differences, like there are certain beers I can't drink. Don't give me that because I'll throw up. It's just not it doesn't taste good. I want a good taste.
You want to enjoy yourself. Yeah.
I want to enjoy the beer taste, and I'm going to continue to have a few of them. And, that Mortal Bloom is really good for Founders. So I gave you 3 right there, and I think they're worthy of anybody's taste buds. How about you?
Yeah, for me, it's Centennial IPA from Founders. And I don't just say that because Founders sponsors the segment. It truly is my favorite. It was my dad's favorite, and when I was growing up, it was always in the fridge. When you're a kid, you see it in the fridge. And then when you turn 21, you want to try what your dad drank.
No, stop it. It was always in the fridge. That tells everybody right there that you stole 1, 2, 3, 4 with your buddies when your dad was gone bowling at night or took your mom out to dinner. All right, here's my second question. SUV or sports car?
I'd go SUV. I love SUVs. Growing up with 2 brothers, my mom always carted the SUV around. I'm an SUV guy.
Yeah, for me, it would be a Corvette as a sports car. It's not realistic for me. First of all, I can't afford the Corvette. And quite honestly, I wouldn't get the new ones. I love the vintage. Okay, I like the early '60s Corvettes. I would love to have one of those. That was my dream car. It's not realistic. Unfortunately, my wife in 2019 head-on accident has to be in an SUV. Has to be up high, so a truck or an SUV is what she needs. But for me, it would be the sports car. Ideally, I would have both. You'd have the SUV in the wintertime, and in the summer times in the state of Michigan, love to stroll down Woodward Telegraph 75, 96, 696 with the top down, riding one of those classic Corvettes. All right.
That's it. It always matters where you go, right? Yeah. Where you're going.
We got 3 Founders beers in. What's your 4th?
I got this for you. I want to know, what is your favorite sports bar food? When you're sitting at the sports bar watching the game, you're sitting at Ascend at Soaring Eagle. What are you eating?
It's hard to deny a burger. I mean, a really good burger goes a long way. It's hard to screw it up, but anybody can make a burger. But if you make a really good burger, it is tough. So if I'm sitting at the bar and I'm watching a game, right, and I've got a Mortal Bloom with me from Founders, I want a good burger to go along with it. Burgers and fries, for me, screams sports bar. Secondarily, I've never been a big chicken wings guy, but I don't mind it. But secondarily, obviously a good pizza, watching sports. But here's one for it, ribs. I mean, if you got some good ribs, I'm all for it. What about you when you're bailing up to the bar?
It's funny you bring up the wings. That's my thing. I love chicken wings. I love buffalo wings. I love bone-in always, and I love any sauce. I can do the teriyaki. I can do the hot sauce. I don't really care. I love chicken wings. Love them. Yeah,
and the garlic. That's really good too. All right, here we go. Favorite holiday?
Christmas. Not even close. I'm in heaven right now, Shep. Every single morning when I'm driving to work, I'm listening to Christmas music. I love that the fact that GR has been hit with some snow lately. I love it. What about you?
Yeah, for me, it's Thanksgiving, just because I have the entire family, my entire family and my wife's entire family over our house. Christmas is spent with your immediate family. I love it when all the cousins and the nieces and nephews are around and all the different conversations that are taking place. What I love about Christmas more than anything is the buildup. I love this time. I love next week. When Christmas finally gets here, it's almost like, oh my gosh, tomorrow is going to be not Christmas. It's disappointing. All right, last one from you. Go, quick.
Best color scheme in sports. What sports team do you think? I know I'm kind of cheating here. It's a sports question. I want to know the best color scheme for uniforms.
From a team or just the colors that match?
Either or. What do you like to see? What's appealing to you?
I love the red, white, and blue of the Pistons.
I had a feeling that's where you were going to go.
Yeah, I love the red and white of the Wings. I love the blue and white of the Tigers. For me, it's hard to beat. I hate a lot of the new logos and new teams overall, but overall, it's hard to beat red, white, and blue. How about you?
Teal. I'm kidding. I'm joking. Of course. No, red, white, and blue is the right answer. That is the correct answer, and I thought that's where you were going to go. It's hard to mess up red, white, and blue.
All right, when we come back, poll question, results, daily wager as well. That's next on X's and Bros.
The Freddy the Pizza Man Foundation is dedicated to providing support to families and Michigan schools touched by
Okay, we've already done the Founders six-pack. We got to get to our daily wager and our poll question results from yesterday. There's also something I want to bring up that I saw early this morning on social media regarding the Lions and the Bills matchup. Last night, just real quick, I had some buddies over. We're watching all the games, drinking some beers, having some pizza, eating some brownies that my wife made. Very nice of her. She and my daughter left so the guys could have the house, if you will. Buddy brings over, it's like an Italian bread with pepperoni and cheese in the middle. It's really good, right? I got to find something to put it on display for the guys. Because my wife always complains to me. She says, you know, you guys, Matt, you think just pouring pretzels into a bowl is an appetizer. I said, you got to understand something. Guys don't give a crap. You understand that? I mean, we're coming over here. They're coming here to watch a football game. We're going to have pizza and beer. And you think what I should be putting out is a veggie dip tray? That's not going to happen, right?
Those two things don't go hand in hand.
They just don't go hand in hand. But it was very kind of her to make the brownies, and I really appreciate it. And, you know, you want to give us our space. It doesn't matter. We're in the basement. You can be upstairs, you know, watching Dancing with the Stars. I don't care. But bottom line is she left. While she leaves, my buddy brings this whatever you want to call it, a pizza loaf or whatever, really good. And we slice it. Well, how do you display it? You can put it on a plate. I don't care. You can put it on tin foil. It wouldn't matter. I put it on a cutting board because that's where he cut it. And I didn't want to dirty another plate, right? My wife comes home and she's looking at this and she's like, she's talking to a couple of my friends who were in the kitchen when she came home, and she says, she's looking at this. She goes, who did this? Who put this out there? And my buddy's like, oh yeah, Shep did that. I mean, yeah, see, he doesn't need a woman in the house. He knows what he's doing. All the guys look at that and say, oh, nice job, Shep. Way to go. You know, when most people wouldn't do that. They just have it on the chopping block, right?
But it takes one woman to look at it.
My wife goes, okay. So she comes home. Everybody leaves. I clean up. I said, all right, I'm out of here. I'm going to bed. She says, hey, just out of curiosity, why would you use that wooden? It's a cutting board, but it's almost shaped like a bowl, right? For display. I said, well, because we cut it on there, and I'm not going to dirty another plate. So what difference does it make? She says, yeah, but those are kind of for decoration. And I looked at her and I said, what do you mean they're for decoration? Those things are decorations. Are flowers. Decorations are paintings. Decorations are pictures. Decoration is like the Christmas tree, right?
Yeah.
Or
right.
Some of the ornaments you may put around the house. And she
not
makes
a
the
bowl
house look
or a cutting board.
I said, those things are behind the stove because they're usable. I mean, that's the reason we spent the money on them in the first place, right? She says, no, they're really for decor. That's the in thing these days. I go, oh, those are the in thing days. I get you. Okay. You know what else is in? New clubs. Like new golf clubs are in. My golf clubs are a good 12 years old. That's in too, but I'm not going out there buying them, am I? So if you're going to buy something, you know, I'm going to use it. Anyway, I found that funny. I wonder if anybody
that
else
is good. Yeah,
ever had to deal with that. Let's get to the final results of our poll question from yesterday. Here's the poll question. Do you think the Lions need home field advantage throughout the playoffs to reach the Super Bowl? Yes or no? And I reminded you, as we put this out, I said, their lone loss came at home. They can win on the road. They're really good on the road, and they have proven that to you. What are the final results?
Probably the closest poll question we've ever had. 51% say no, the Lions don't need home field advantage. 49% say yes, they do.
That stuns me. The 49% stuns me. In other words, most people don't believe that they can win outside in Philadelphia or in, well, I guess LA would be inside, right? Who else? Where else would they possibly? They
Minnesota. If they collapsed, it'd be
They
Minnesota.
wouldn't go to LA. There's only two choices. Minnesota's indoors.
Yep.
Right? But we used home or road. We didn't use indoor or outdoor. Most people, that tells me most people think they can't win at Philadelphia.
That's exactly what it is. The people that are detractors here that think the Lions can't win on the road throughout the playoffs,
It's Philadelphia.
it's Philly. That's what comes to mind.
It's Philly, and it's in January. So immediately people believe, they can't win in the cold because of Jared Goff's. I think because of Jared Goff's.
But by the way, though, that is what most people think.
His record when it's below freezing, right?
Yeah,
right, the temperature. Here's the funny thing about that: the same people who don't believe that, and look, they've got numbers behind them, so it's hard to argue with them. But the same people are those who are arguing all the time. Defense and the running game travel. Defense travels to win playoff games.
This is exactly what I was going to bring up.
Be able to run the football, Shep. Come on, okay? We're a running team. Let's impose our will. All those cliches. We threw it way too many times against Tampa. We need to run the football. If that's how you feel, and you think Detroit can do that, and they are one of the best running games in all of football, and I brought up earlier, they have the second best scoring defense in football. Those things matter, right? If you believe in that, if you're all in on all that, then why does it matter where they play?
Exactly. If the question is, do the Lions need home field advantage to reach the Super Bowl? Hell no! For all the reasons you just brought up. They're a great running team. They got a great defense.
But I would say this. You and I both, you'd be lying if you did. If they didn't keep home field like they have right now, you would be disappointed.
For sure. And that's where, two things can be
going to the NFC Championship game. I mean, because you do feel like there's some validation there.
Absolutely.
I think you'd be right. All I'm saying is I don't think they need it. Would I want it?
Agreed.
Absolutely. Who wouldn't? But I don't think you need it. All right, let's get to the Daily Wager. It's brought to you by Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. Check out their sportsbook, Ascend. It's a phenomenal place to go watch games. Look, if you stuck your way through those games last night, and all three sucked.
It was bad.
They did.
It was really bad.
The game sucked. The Red Wings game sucked. The Thursday night football game sucked. It did. I mean, the Pistons, they made 7 threes all night long, a season low. They were 2 for 19 in the first half from deep, while Boston shooting 51% from the floor and hitting 23s. They played without Jason Tatum, and they still steamrolled Detroit, having won 3 times against the Pistons this year. So that was a bad game. You watch one guy for Philadelphia score all 4 goals against your team, Scott Lawton, who hadn't scored but 1 goal in the previous 25 games.
That's remarkable.
That sucked, right? Granted, 2 were empty net. And then you got the first game in the NFL this year to have nothing but field goals, like no touchdown scored in a 12-6 final. Those were bad games. That doesn't mean the experience wouldn't be bad. You go to Ascend and you watch those games, you'd still be happy because the food's really good, the company's cool, and the beer and the drinks are flowing, baby. So give me the Daily Wager from yesterday, how you did, and what do we have for the weekend?
Yesterday, luckily, we simply took Rams money line. We got off the schneid.
Right.
We win 12-6, and we get our first win of the week. It's been a rough week. But tonight, Shep, I've got the Lions-Bills over 54. I can extend this into the weekend. I'll take Sunday's Lions-Bills game. I think it's going to be a shootout, and I like the over 54. I think we see something similar to what we saw when the Lions took on the Packers last Thursday, 34-31, something like that. I don't know how you feel. I think it's going to be high score.
Yeah, it's going to be high score. Look, you got the top 2 offenses in the NFL. On the other hand, we just got done talking about how the Lions have the second best scoring defense in the NFL. Let's see what wins out. I think it's going to be hard to stop Josh Allen. I don't think Buffalo is going to stop Detroit. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, no doubt. So we look forward to that all weekend long. And speaking of that, the Fox NFL tweeted something out earlier, and that was, if you could pick one of these teams to play in the Super Bowl, which one would it be? The Bills, there's a picture of Josh Allen headbutting one of his linemen, and there's a picture of Jared Goff chatting it up with Jamison Williams. Who would you rather see in the Super Bowl? I found that interesting because we have said all week long, and really we've said it for longer than that, that this is a preview, a possible preview of the Super Bowl. I wanted to see what some of the responses were to the tweet. I wanted to see, you don't know where people are coming from unless you do a deep dive, and that's not easy. But I wanted to see, kind of what people were responding to. One person said, how about both? As soon as the NFL stops helping the Chiefs every game, this could be the Super Bowl. Somebody else said this: Lions will go out in their first playoff game, and the Bills won't make it either.
Yeah, you just what are you watching?
Playoff game. Have you watched this team at all over the last 2 years? Now, was it close against the Rams and Tampa last year? Yep, that's because there's good teams. Okay, Detroit, for the most part, you're looking at the number 1 scoring offense and the number 2 defense scoring. That tells you that there's a wide separation there, that this team handles its business. We said this last week. We asked people, which game made you the most uncomfortable? Tell me, which game were you squirming just a little bit in your seat while you were watching the Lions? And it took us a while, right? For me, it was Houston. I think for you, it was it might have been a Green Bay or a Minnesota.
It was Minnesota down 10-0 early.
When a team like Detroit is beating teams, when the point differential is by far and away the most in the NFL, you know what the point differential is, right? It's plus 183. Detroit has scored 183 points more than they have allowed. The next closest is Buffalo at 129, to put that in perspective just a little bit. Last year, Baltimore, really good team, right? 203. They were a plus 203 in run scoring differential. Detroit's not far off from that. And by the way, Dallas was a 194. 194. So Dallas is a team that I think a lot of people, they were trying to figure out, do they believe in, primarily because of the quarterback. Whether you like it or not, it's true. For people to say the Lions are going to lose their first playoff game, first of all, it's going to be at home. It's going to be an absolutely bonkers atmosphere like it was last year. But their quarterback's been there, done that. There's a lot of belief there. I don't know what this person's doing. I don't care. Their opinion is obviously moot because they have no idea what they're doing. And they're
loser.
Another guy says, Lions would be so cool for the city of Detroit. Josh Allen is overplayed, gets all the calls. Again, I'm not sure what you're looking at there, or if you've watched it much, but give me a break. I like this one. This guy says, since I'm an Eagles fan, I'm biased. But if the Eagles don't represent the NFC, I hope the Lions do.
That's a great take.
That is a long-suffering fan base that deserves this.
Cheers to that guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or gal. That is an incredible, measured way to look at things. If my team can't go, I want the Lions to go because I think the Lions deserve to be there, and I think that fan base deserves to have that experience that I experienced in 2017.
Yeah, and as the thread continues, you'll get somebody waving the terrible towel for Pittsburgh. You get homers saying Bills and so on and so forth. But you can tell there's some people in here who don't have a bias one way or the other, and they're looking at it, and they'll say things like Lions and Ravens instead of Lions and Bills. In other words, they're thinking that those are the two teams. But there's so much love for the Lions in general in this thread that makes you feel like, that's pretty cool. This one person says, same matchup I wanted to see last year, Lions versus Bills. One finally gets a ring. Lions at least make it to a Super Bowl. You could tell that's an unbiased take.
Yeah.
Right? Buffalo's been there 4 times. It was 4 times in a row. They lost them all. Somebody in this actually said, I'd like to see the Bills and the Vikings. And that's a really good take. Like, I want my team to go. But if Minnesota went, I wouldn't have an issue with it because that's a franchise and a fan base that is 0 for 4 in Super Bowls. They would love to find one of those teams would earn their first Super Bowl. That would be pretty cool. I think it's a cooler storyline that the Lions actually get there for the first time in the history of their franchise. But if they're not going there, so I put myself in the guy who texted, I'm a Philly fan. If they can't represent the NFC, I want the Lions because it's a long-suffering fan base. We've got some long-suffering fan bases that are dealing with this. Not like Detroit. I used to have this debate all the time with my friend John Beeline, who's a big Buffalo Bills fan. And he's like, Matt, you don't understand. I said, no, hold on. Stop, coach. You don't understand. At least you've been there. And I get the heartbreak to a certain extent after losing 4, especially 4 in a row, especially one that was really close against the Giants. Scott Norwood missed wide right. But when you look at the Lions, never having been there, And I said, rarely being to an NFC championship game. Stop. Your fan base and your disappointment and your frustration pales in comparison to ours. The only one who can relate to us, and really they can't because they've been in much more interesting deeper playoff situations. Brian Sipe and the Browns against John Elway and the Broncos, is Cleveland. It's the one thing that we should actually have in common with that city is the disappointment and the heartbreak and the frustration of our two football franchises. And I suppose not that Cleveland would do this, but you look at it, the extension of Cleveland was Baltimore, and Baltimore got their ring, right? Or two rings, actually, fair or unfair, as the Ravens, because that was the Cleveland Browns before they moved to Baltimore. Anyway, I wanted to share that with you because I think it's pretty cool when you see as many people supporting the Lions, and I don't think it's just a Detroit Lions thread or a Detroit bias in that standpoint. I want to thank everybody for your phone calls and for your texts. Really good Friday for us. We really enjoy that. We had some good conversation. We hope you have a great weekend. We invite you to listen to The Huge Show a little bit later on this afternoon from 3 until 6 on these same station affiliates. And we invite you back with us Monday morning here on X's and Bros. We're with you Monday through Friday, 6 until 9. Until then, have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening as well. And have a great Friday. All right?
It's time to go in the huddle.